Welcome to another Founder Wisdom podcast with Gurdeep Prewal. That could be a VC Wisdom pod because Gurdeep is deep in that game. He's co-founder and general partner at Rana Venture Partners. He invested in top companies such as Olipop, which most of us know. Amazing company, great branding, great product as well. So quite excited to talk with Gurdeep. This pod is brought to you by my company. If you want to start a podcast and monetize quickly the unconventional way, as we use cold outreach to get you guests and get you featured on podcasts, you can go to podpar.com. Gurdeep, I'm glad to have you on. Tell me a bit more about yourself, Rokana, and what you're up to nowadays.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Charles. Always nice to speak to a fellow Canadian as well. I'm a co-founder of Rana Ventures. Started the firm about 6 years ago with my partner Samesh. We created the fund specifically to invest in mission-driven consumer brands, focusing on health and wellness, particularly around gut health, mental health, physical health. So those are the areas that we focus on, and we started primarily in food and beverage, but we have now expanded into other adjacent areas around health and wellness as well.
Why did you decided to jump into what you're doing? Why VC, and why you're concerned for investing in startups that can better human health?
Yeah, that's there's certainly a lot to unpack there. I think a lot of the birth of Rokana and what we are trying to do is actually really born out of two parallel paths on my own personal journey. I started off my career in investment banking. I spent 17 years doing M&A and capital markets through investment banking. So I was very deep in the finance world. And as I was navigating my life in this finance world, I was, trying to make sense of, what is my role in this industry. At the same time, I was going through my own personal development journey, exploring ways of becoming the best version of myself. I started really getting into mindfulness practices, meditation, started thinking about my own body, what I was putting inside it in terms of nutrition, really trying to optimize my own performance. And as these two parallels paths were going, I mean, they were kind of two different worlds for me. When I used to work in investment banking, I literally felt like I was living a double life. I mean, there was my life as a banker, and then there was my life, my personal life that I had, a lot of passions and beliefs in other areas. And so as these two parallel paths were kind of evolving at the same time, I was trying to find a way to make these paths converge, and really align my personal values and beliefs closer to what I'm actually doing for my work. And so Rakana was born out of my deep desire to support consumer brands that were delivering on these tools for humans specifically to optimize our performance, be the best versions of ourselves. I saw incredible transformation for myself as I started to evolve and adopt all these various wellness practices, mindfulness practices, and I just felt like, we have a gap in the market, in the VC market. There are, of course, a lot of what you would say impact or ESG-driven funds out there. But many of them focus on the environment, and of course that is a big problem to solve. But I felt that there was a lack of focus on the human, and that's what we really wanted to focus on. We wanted to focus on the human, and really deliver the tools that humans can benefit from to be the best version of themselves. So that's how it was born. It's been an awesome, fun journey so far to discover all these cool brands like Olipop you mentioned and many others that we've invested in.
How do you balance wealth and health? Does one benefit the other? Does one take from the other? How do you prioritize each?
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the really interesting, shifts in energy states I saw in myself when I transitioned away from investment banking into this venture capital world, aligning my personal passions closer to what I'm doing, I actually found that I became a little bit less attached to the wealth and the money. I became more attached to the purpose and the mission. And so, as I started to feel better, as I started to feel better, not just physically, but mentally, about what I'm doing in this world and who I am, I actually found myself becoming more and more disconnected to material things and the wealth itself. Now, of course, if you have success, wealth will naturally come in some form, but it does not become the primary motivating factor when you make this shift in energy state, and that's something that I've certainly noticed in myself. And I shared these stories a lot with other friends of mine who've gone through their own journeys. And I think it's important to really, I mean, money and wealth is more of an external driver. I think it's more important to be motivated intrinsically, and that's where that energy shift actually can be really profound.
How did you find these great brands? Olipop, for example, was it the founder? Was it the idea? At what stage did you invest?
Yeah, we found Olipop very early. It was literally only on two months on shelf when I first heard about it. It was a interesting story. Actually, I was at Burning Man in 2018 for the first time. I attended Burning Man, and I was camping at a camp called Heart Tribe. And my camp organizer, 2 months after Burning Man, had posted this picture of him drinking this can of Olipop, and I had never seen it before. I'm always on the lookout for interesting beverages. I sort of pinched and zoomed on the photo, went to the website, looked at the ingredients, tried to discover what it was all about. And I saw something incredibly unique there that I hadn't seen before, which was a brand or product that I thought could truly potentially rival traditional legacy soda. I mean, of course, I became more convinced after trying it and meeting the founders as well. It was really just one meeting with Ben and David that we were convinced that they had something incredibly unique. I felt like, when you look at the world of food and beverage, there's a very strong link between obesity and diabetes and the consumption of sugary beverages. I think many people could make that case. And so we felt like there had to be, at some point, real disruption in legacy soda. Kombucha was being pitched to us for a couple of years prior to us having discovered Olipop. And you may remember that kombucha was all the craze before functional soda came around. And we just felt that kombucha wasn't really going all the way in terms of disrupting legacy soda. A lot of people were calling kombucha as a soda for the millennials. We just never believed it personally. It's expensive to make and ship. The taste is actually a little bit polarizing. It can be vinegary for a lot of people. The price point was like 3-4 times legacy soda. So we just felt like there were a lot of things that Olipop was delivering on that kombucha was not. And that's really what inspired us to back them very early. So we've been a very strong supporter of the brand, having participated in a number of rounds over the past five years.
Kombucha, I'm a fan. I drink it all the time, has probiotics. My understanding is that Olipop has some of that too, plus some adaptogens.
Yeah, so actually the formulation, it was something else that was unique that we hadn't really seen before, where the focus for Olipop was really on the prebiotics. And this was a discovery for me because obviously, for years we've been hearing a lot about probiotics. But actually, you can't really have a healthy gut microbiome without the prebiotics. It's kind of like if you have if you consume a lot of probiotics, but you're not feeding your gut microbiome with the prebiotics, it's actually hard to keep it alive. And so it becomes a bit of a leaky gut, I guess you could say, from that perspective. And so we felt like Ben and David were bringing something very unique from a science perspective. And that's the other thing that I want to mention as well. One of the early points of excitement for us around this brand where they were actually running clinical trials on their formulation to prove the efficacy of their products, and they continue to do so today and produce amazing results. And so that for us also created a new standard in the food and beverage world. Not a lot of brands will run clinical trials and spend the money to do that. For us, it meant that Ben and David must have really strong conviction in their product to be able to spend the money at an early stage company to go and do that work.
And my next question was, where do you feel lucky to have found them out? Because you also invested in Kettle and Fire, Hue Chocolates. I don't know them, but Kettle Fire, they seem to be huge. They seem to be somewhat profitable. So do you have a formula to find out these startups? Is it the ideas? Is it the founders? Is it a grids that you used to use in your banking days? How do you maximize your odds of finding that great investment?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's probably no perfect formula out there. Venture is tough, no matter which way you slice it. If you're going to be in the venture game, you're just going to have to be ready to stomach some losses and find those game-changing brands. For us, we lead with mission, and that's where it starts for us. So, which each sort of sector that we invest in. So today we have three main sectors: food and beverage, personal care, beauty, mind, body wellness. I can talk about the other two in a minute. But in food and beverage, our strategy has been really twofold. One, to identify very large categories out there that have yet to see meaningful innovation or disruption. Okay. And find brands that we believe are really delivering on a solution to consumers in some sort of transformational solution from a health and wellness perspective. I think you always have to start with, amazing product and founder. That's where it starts for us. We have to have conviction that the product is delivering something very unique and innovative and impactful to the consumer, and that it will stand the test of time. We really don't like investing in products that have these sort of rocket ship rides and then fall off a cliff. For us, that doesn't serve our mission. If the product does not stay in the system for a long time, then it will not create the change that we desire. The founder team, of course, is extremely important because at the end of the day, we're minority investors. So really understanding, the personality of the founders, the ability to work with them, and it's a journey. It's an up and down journey for many brands, and so we have to have the conviction that we can work closely with these founders and be able to add value and help them on their journey. So that's really important. We've also developed over a period of more than a decade now, because my business partner, my co-founder, Sumesh, and I, we were actually angel investors in this space before we launched the fund. And we put together a lot of data points and the sort of proprietary scoring matrix that we created for early stage consumer brands, particularly mission-driven consumer brands, where we have quite a lot of detail on the various elements that we score these brands on to give us a result on whether or not we should take a serious look at the brand or not. Now, that's not a definitive answer for us by any means, but we've seen that the results of this scoring matrix do actually provide us with really good insights. So that's something proprietary that we've created that helps guide us as well. But ultimately for us, it does begin with mission, and then the ability for us to really help these brands in a meaningful way.
VC is hard, but consumer brands is also very hard. Dog is barking, sorry. Yeah, consumer brands is also very hard. So how do you manage to get a return not only on VC but also on consumer brand side of things?
Mhm. Yeah, consumer brands is very hard because the barriers to entry are very low. Anyone can, particularly in the US, I mean, the ecosystem is so very well established to create brands, just off the back of an idea. You can outsource a lot of the functional needs. And so the barriers to entry are very low. And scaling up is very hard because you have a lot of legacy CPG brands that are much, much bigger and, control shelf space, control distribution. So it is very difficult. But the beauty of investing in a market like the United States and North America in general is that you have a very large, fast-moving consumer that adopts innovation very quickly. The consumer engine of the U.S. is, I think, unmatched anywhere in the world. And so, if you do find a concept or a brand that actually resonates and adopts very quickly, you can become a unicorn brand fairly quickly within 5 to 7 years is not not inconceivable. So I think you have to find those game-changing brands in order to be successful in this space. The brands that will rapidly get rapid adoption and be able to scale up quickly. You cannot play in consumer brands game in a subscale way. I mean, you could be a niche premium brand, but if you're really trying to build for impact, and speak to mass market, then you have to really be able to accelerate and distribute and grow.
Did you had liquidity events yet after 6 years running the fund?
Yeah, we've had our first exit in the fund was Hue Chocolate. So that's a brand that I think a lot of people will be familiar with now. It's got a pretty strong following. We felt like, confectionery obviously is a massive, massive market. And we felt like there was still a lot of disruption to be done in the confectionery market. And so when we identified Hue Chocolate, one of the things that really excited us is just the clean nature of the product. There's just absolutely nothing bad in there. Very reasonable in terms of sugar, tastes amazing. When you look at the front of the package of Hue Chocolate, you'll see like no refined sugars, no dairy, no emulsifiers, and the list goes on and on. And you would first look at that package and wonder, how can this taste good if it's got the absence of all those ingredients, and then you taste it and you're pretty amazed by how it tastes. So we had exited that brand. Mondelez bought it. It was a fairly successful exit for the company. Got around 12 times revenue on their exit, which is one of the highest multiples generated on the sale of a food and beverage brand in the last few decades. So it's a good result for us, and we're very happy to still be supporting the founders in some way now. Jason Karp was one of the founders. He's started a business called Human Co. And so we're investors there as well. And I think that's a beautiful part of this journey as well. We're really investing in a community of like-minded people, really people who are values aligned with us. And it's great that even after exit, we continue to do business with each other, and we have a very good relationship. So it's an excellent way to build this community of change makers through the fund that we created as well.
Do you feel that you're in the slow thinking lane rather than fast twitch Charles like ADHD modes that I am in on a daily basis, just being left and right as a VC investor? Do you take a lot of time to pull out decisions, and like, do you live this calm life in which you operate in scale of decades instead of minutes and seconds like myself?
Yeah, it's a real it can be a real mental push and pull actually, because the VC world by nature many VCs, want to be on those rocket ship rides, right? Those are the brands you want to find, and you gotta basically everyone is chasing for those high growth companies where you can rapidly exit brands, and then you contrast that with our mission, which it's going to take years to really truly create change that we desire through our investing strategy. And so for us, there is this push and pull that we have to work with. We are constantly asking ourselves if the brands that we are investing in are going to be the brands of tomorrow and remain in the system long term. We've said no to a lot of opportunities where there was, I would say, easy money that you could make on a quick return, but we just felt like the brand would not have staying power. And so we do have to work within this this realm of being in the VC world where you're chasing growth and chasing exits. But we try to do so in a way that still honors our investing philosophies and our mission, which is really what's important to us. And so it makes our job harder, a lot harder. You can imagine that the pool of opportunities we have to deal with is much smaller than probably a typical VC because we are leading with mission, and I can probably weed out 95% of the food and beverage brands that come to us just purely based on looking at their nutrition label. And so that's a challenge we have taken on. It's hopefully over a couple of decades. If we're able to survive that long, we can prove that this investment strategy can deliver great results. And so far we're off to a good start.
Canada legalized cannabis some time ago. It doesn't seem that you're much involved in that space. What's your take on the cannabis industry and the profitability of it?
Well, look, I think there's a realm of plant medicine out there, and I think when cannabis was first being pitched to be legalized, it was very much being positioned as having these medicinal benefits. And that's really, how the case for legalization was pushed. But what you saw is that it rapidly became very recreational. And so now, in places where cannabis is legalized, it's easily available. Here in Toronto, you can find cannabis stores on almost every corner downtown Toronto. And I'm not knocking that. I think if consumers want it and consumers prefer that over other things like alcohol, for example, then I'm not going to judge on that. But from an investing standpoint, I think what happened is that look, if you were early in that movement, then you probably made a lot of money. But as it become quickly recreational, and the barriers to entry became basically very low. It was very difficult to find where sort of the alpha is in that strategy to invest in cannabis. And so that's where it is now. It's going to be tough to reverse any of this. I think it's become a recreational product. I think there's another leg to plant medicine around some of the other psychedelic compounds that are being explored for medicinal purposes, for treatment. I think that has very strong promise in the future as being part of our healthcare system. And I do believe that people will learn from what happened with cannabis and apply those learnings to other psychedelics so that they'll be administered in a more controlled manner, really for the intended purpose to provide the healing that people will need from those medicines.
I want to take these last few minutes to discuss a couple of health tech ideas of yours and mine, or consumer products. That last health tech, an easy one could be like a GPT, you just feed it your health data and you ask it questions, or it tells you like what types of questions you should ask, or gives you data on your health. And it seems that Apple's still not catching up to that. And this a second one, a physical product, and ideas might surface to me because I haven't thought about these in a while, but I've always wanted this mask that you put on and it gives you oxygen, like more oxygen, and it can also feed you intrapulmonary caffeine, B12, and like all these compounds that may optimize your brain. These nootropics. So, what do you think about these two ideas? And give us a couple of ideas of yours that you've been thinking about lately.
Yeah, well, listen, I think I mentioned earlier these three verticals that we have: food and beverage, personal care, beauty, mind, body wellness. What we're talking about now is in our mind, body wellness realm. And the thesis for us in mind, body wellness is a reinvention of healthcare. So I like to call it healthcare becoming self-care, where you as a consumer are going to be able to, with the tools available to you, take more control of your health journey and really feel empowered by that. Be able to customize it for your own needs and be able to take control of your health journey. Because I think the system that we've been living in for many decades, we've been in this sort of black box where, we go to a doctor's office, we sit in the waiting room, we wait to be called in. We're diagnosed, we're prescribed something, we go to the pharmacy, we get our medication, we take the medication, maybe it has some side effects and it creates some other unintended consequences. And you're kind of living in this world where you feel you have no control over what's happening. And you don't really have any insights into why you're taking what you're taking and what it's doing to you. That's changing very rapidly. I mean, wearing consumers are getting used to wearing wearable devices, seeing data on their unique functioning, getting used to seeing that data and becoming more aware of what's happening with their body. That's going to lead to more tools being connected to unlocking the power of that data. So we really firmly believe that this is going to be happening. And all these tools, like you mentioned, these examples are certainly within the realm of possibility. I think there's a lot of ideas out there that we see that we're pretty excited by, that we think can be transformational for the consumer on their journey. One particular area we are very interested in is hormonal health, particularly for women, where many women are dealing with very deep lack of knowledge on a day-to-day basis on their hormonal health journey. And there are a lot of applications and AI-powered applications that are now coming up where you can test your hormonal health in real time and be able to get those insights to be able to make real-time changes. And not be sort of living in this world of like total lack of awareness of what is happening to you. So we're particularly interested by ideas like that. So I certainly believe like the examples that you mentioned are possible. I haven't seen this idea of the mask yet, but I'm sure it'll appear to me somewhere now after we've had this conversation.
Right. I think, we would also live in a better world if people would control their biochemistry more. People would get less angry. Most of the time, it's not necessarily that you're offended by something, it's just that your biochemistry is off. You're lacking magnesium here, too much cortisol there. I think it would be a better planet if most human beings would be biohacked. What ideas have you seen lately that have caught your attention? For example, I had Robbie Bent on the pod. He's the founder of Othership.us. You probably know Robbie.
Yep.
And breathwork, is quite popular. It's free. Breathwork, the app is not free, obviously, but it's just cool. You start these breathworks and you feel better again. Seems like a product that could be potentially ready for mass adoption. what other trends or startups have you seen that have caught your attention?
Yeah, I mean, Othership is a great example. I think want to go back to something you just said earlier as well about we'll live on a better planet if we're better humans. And actually that speaks to our philosophy of why we're focusing on investing in the human. We have a very firm belief that if the old saying, if you can't love someone else until you love yourself first. And that's something that we're really aiming to do is bring tools to consumers that allow them to really, like you say, optimize their own performance so that they can be in a better position to serve others and give towards others. And that's really what our human psychology is about. We feel more inclined to help others when we feel secure in our own ways. And that's why our focus is very much on the human. And Othership for me is a great example of serving a very deep societal need. And this is also touching on another aspect of our investing strategy. When we go out and find brands and construct our portfolio, we do so on the basis of identifying what we think are deep societal needs out there. And what Othership has done is filled a need, a very deep need out there for healthy social interactions and community building in a healthy setting. So much of our past social occasions have revolved around consumption of alcohol, going to a bar or going to a restaurant, having an expensive meal. And I think people are kind of just tired of that. When you think about meeting someone, it's always at a coffee shop, consuming a coffee, or meeting somewhere at a bar. And I think consumers are very much looking for a place of gathering where they can feel socially connected without having to consume things that are actually going to be not good for them. Because the knock-on effects of doing that are actually are long, because suppose you do go out and meet someone for a social occasion at a bar and have some drinks, then you're probably going to go home and not have a great sleep because alcohol very much disrupts your sleep. And it just becomes this vicious cycle, and then you wake up tired, and then you end up consuming coffee. And you're like, you can just see how this goes on forever and ever. I actually went to Othership's New Year's Eve party the other night, and it was just awesome. I mean, and I felt afterwards, I came out of that New Year's Eve party and I felt amazing, and I had a great sleep, and I woke up on New Year's Day feeling amazing. So I do think that that's something very unique as a concept that's much needed. And that's a great example of brands that we love that are doing something really transformational from a social impact standpoint, but also very good businesses as well. That's something else that I have to point out, is that although I have been speaking a lot about impact and mission, the businesses that I'm talking about are also very successful businesses that are delivering strong results.
Right. Why isn't there the Airbnb of gyms? I'm like I'm going out, I'm at the center of the city and I don't feel energized. Why can't I log in and go lift some weights? Or even in the future, we could see like optimizers as a service. You just order them on the app and they come with a full stack, like a deployable sauna, a cold exposure. They give you a quick IV, and 10 minutes later, you're fully energized and you're good to go to have some fun rather than just being down. And yeah, the modern restaurant experience sort of sucks, like the other day I went to this restaurant, they had shows. It was really nice and all, but still it's not optimized, like it's not personalized as well. And yeah, the alcohol aspects. I mean, we see the Brian Johnson offering virgin olive oil shots, and so forth. I think that's the future as well. It's a different type of energy. It's a more scalable one. Thanks for coming on today, Gurdeep. Where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, our website, rakanaventures.com. It talks a lot about some of the things we talked about in this podcast in terms of our investing philosophy and our mission, and also some of our community. I didn't really touch upon that, but we have an amazing community of